Chapter 1: A New Beginning. My father, Arthur Miller, was a man of Norwegian heritage, hailing from a quaint town near Oslo. His own father, my grandfather, was the proprietor of the town's general store, a place where one could find everything from groceries to household necessities. It was a shop that truly had it all. At the tender age of 14, a terrible accident altered the course of my father's life. He severely injured his arm, and the doctor who attended to him, unfortunately, worsened the injury. The damage was so extensive that his arm had to be amputated. Despite having only one arm, my father was remarkably adept. He cleverly modified a fork, sharpening one side to serve as a knife, determined to cut his own food without assistance. This special utensil became his constant companion, carried everywhere in a small pouch. Though he grew up in a small town, my father harbored a grand ambition to see the world. Upon completing his education, he took a job on a ship that brought him to Calais, France. His journey continued to Paris, where he met and married a young woman named Marie. During this era, global shipping was booming, and vessels required a vast array of supplies. Seizing the opportunity, my father established a company to provide ships with everything they needed: fuel, food, and countless other provisions. The business thrived, and he amassed a considerable fortune. He relocated his family to Cardiff, Wales, a major port city, to better manage his enterprise. He and Marie had 2 children, a daughter and a son. Tragically, Marie passed away, leaving my father heartbroken and a single parent. In 1911, seeking solace and a new partner, he returned to Norway for a holiday. There, he met a young Norwegian woman named Sophia and married her. They expanded their family with 4 more children: 2 daughters, a son, me, born in 1916, and then a 3rd daughter. Our blended family of 6 children lived happily in a large house in a Welsh village, about 8 miles west of Cardiff. We were surrounded by chickens, cows, and horses. It was an idyllic life, but sorrow was on the horizon. My dear sister, Astrid, fell ill and passed away at the age of 7. My father, overwhelmed with grief, succumbed to an illness of his own shortly after. Perhaps his broken heart left him with no will to fight. In those days, the medical treatments that could have saved them were not yet available. In 1920, my mother, Sophia, found herself a young widow in a foreign country with 5 children and a newborn. Her entire family was back in Norway, but she chose to remain in the United Kingdom. It was my father's wish for his children to be educated in England, which he always proclaimed had the best schools in the world. My earliest memories are faint, but one stands out with perfect clarity: my tricycle. It was a small child's bike with 3 wheels, and my sister and I would race them down the middle of the street as fast as our little legs could pedal. The thrill of the speed was exhilarating. It was a different time, with very few cars on the road, allowing us such simple, dangerous freedoms. Chapter 2: The Candy Shop Conspiracy. By 1923, at 7 years old, I had started school. The daily walk was about a mile, and along the route was a candy shop that was an almost magical place for me and my friends. Every day, we would press our faces against the window, marveling at the colorful jars of sweets. When we had a few coins, we'd venture inside. The only shadow over this sweet paradise was the woman who ran it, Mrs. Higgins. She was a small, unpleasant old woman who never cracked a smile. "I'm watching you," or "buy something or get out," were her typical greetings. She was perpetually untidy, her clothes stained with the remnants of her breakfast, and her hands were grimy, with blackened fingernails. The thought of those hands reaching into the candy jars was unsettling, but it never deterred us from making a purchase. At school, my friends and I had discovered a loose floorboard, creating a secret hiding place for our treasures, mostly candy. One afternoon, we found an unexpected addition to our stash: a dead mouse. An idea sparked in my mind. "I have a plan," I announced. "Let's put the mouse in one of Mrs. Higgins' candy jars." My friends were thrilled. "We'll do it today," one of them, Thomas, declared. "It was your idea, so you have to be the one to do it." "I'll ask for some of those lemon drops," my friend Michael chimed in. "They're on the top shelf at the back." When she turns around to get them, you can slip the mouse into that jar of strawberry candies. It's the closest one. That afternoon, buzzing with nervous excitement, we entered the shop. Michael asked for his lemon drops. As Mrs. Higgins turned her back, I swiftly dropped the dead mouse into the designated jar. She turned back, her beady eyes scanning our group. "Only one of you is buying? I don't want the rest of you loitering in here," she snapped. "Now, off with you." We scrambled out of the shop. "Did you do it?" they asked eagerly. "Of course," I replied, feeling a surge of pride. We all celebrated our small victory. The next morning, as we passed the shop, we saw a closed sign on the door. This was unusual. We peered through the window. The strawberry candy jar was shattered on the floor, glass strewn everywhere. The mouse lay amidst the wreckage, but Mrs. Higgins was nowhere to be seen. A sense of dread washed over us. "She must have had a shock," Thomas whispered. "Shocks can be bad for old people. Sometimes they just die." He looked at me, his eyes wide. "You killed her." "Me? Why just me?" I protested, my voice trembling. "It was your plan," he retorted, "and you put the mouse in the jar." The weight of being a killer settled on my 8-year-old shoulders. I felt sick. No asterisk, I thought, trying to reassure myself. Asterisk, an 8-year-old boy can't kill someone. It's impossible. Asterisk, later at school, during recess, I saw the headmaster, Mr. Peterson, walking across the yard with a woman. It was Mrs. Higgins. She was alive. I was not a murderer. She scanned the crowd of boys, and her grimy finger shot out, pointing directly at Michael. "That's one of them," she shrieked. Then her finger swung towards me. "And that's another." She proceeded to identify our 3 other co-conspirators. We were all summoned to the headmaster's office, a room that smelled heavily of tobacco. Mr. Peterson, a towering man, held a long, thin cane. Fear churned in my stomach. Mrs. Higgins stood by, a look of grim satisfaction on her face. "You, Mr. Peterson said, pointing the cane at Michael. "Come here." Michael approached slowly, was instructed to bend over, and the headmaster brought the cane down hard on his backside. The sound echoed in the silent room. Michael yelped. "Harder," Mrs. Higgins urged. 4 times the cane fell. One by one, my friends received their punishment. Then it was my turn. I bent over, bracing for the impact. I heard the whoosh of the cane before I felt the searing pain. My bottom was on fire. With each strike, the pain intensified until I thought I couldn't bear it. When it was over, walking was an agonizing effort. "Thank you, Headmaster," Mrs. Higgins said cheerfully. "I don't think I'll be finding any more dead mice in my candy jars." Chapter 3. Norwegian Summers. The words summer vacation were the most beautiful in the English language. From the age of 4 to 17, every summer was a glorious adventure in Norway. It felt like our true home, as our family was Norwegian, and we all spoke the language fluently. Our travel group was always large, usually 10 or more people. There were my 3 sisters and my much older half-sister, my half-brother and me, my mother, an au pair, and often a couple of friends of my half-sister. In those days before airplanes, the journey itself was an expedition, taking 4 days by a combination of trains, taxis, a ship, and finally, a small boat. Our first stop was always Oslo, where we'd spend a night and visit my maternal grandparents. My grandmother was a lovely old woman with snow-white hair, and my grandfather was a quiet man, perpetually seated in his armchair, smoking a long-stemmed pipe. From Oslo, we would travel to a small, idyllic island that was, to us, the most perfect place on earth. We spent our days on the beach, swimming in the crisp sea, basking in the sun, and taking our little boat to explore neighboring islands, feasting on freshly caught fish. I recall only one unpleasant incident during those otherwise perfect holidays. I was about 8 when my mother announced, "We're going to the doctor. He wants to take a look at your nose and mouth." "What for?" I asked, concerned. "It's nothing serious," she said, "but I think you have adenoids." "What are adenoids?" "Don't you worry," she replied dismissively. The doctor examined me, and being too young to understand the implications, I wasn't afraid. A nurse held a bowl under my chin. The doctor took a long, sharp instrument, sterilized it in the boiling water of a pot over a fire, and said, "Open your mouth." I hesitated. "It'll be over in a second," he assured me. I opened my mouth, and the instrument went in. He scraped and twisted it several times. A stream of red flowed from my mouth into the bowl. It was a shocking sensation. "Those are your adenoids," the doctor said, pointing to the fleshy red lumps in the bowl. The roof of my mouth was throbbing with pain. "How could they do this to me?" "You'll breathe much better now," he said cheerfully. My mother and I then walked the 30 minutes back to my grandparents' house. They gave me a chair and said, "He can rest here for a bit." This was 1924, when it was commonplace to perform such a procedure on a child without any anesthetic. Chapter 4: Life at Boarding School. In September 1925, at the age of 9, I was sent to boarding school. St. Michael's School in Somerset, England, was the closest one to our home in Wales, but it was separated by the 50-mile-wide Bristol Channel. For this new chapter, my mother bought me a tuck box, a personal trunk that every boarding school student had. It could be locked, and no teacher was allowed to look inside. It was where we kept our food from home, toys, and other personal items. One boy at St. Michael's famously kept a live frog in his. My mother accompanied me on the journey. We took a taxi to Cardiff, a boat across the channel, and another taxi to the school. I was dressed in my new school uniform, every item meticulously labeled with my name. The school was an imposing collection of buildings surrounded by vast sports fields, with dormitories for 150 boys. On that first day, the grounds were teeming with boys and their families. The headmaster, a very tall man, moved from one group to another. "Goodbye, Mrs. Miller," he said to my mother abruptly. "Time for you to leave. We'll take good care of him." Understanding her cue, my mother gave me a quick hug, said goodbye, and left. I stood there, clutching my new tuck box, and began to cry, overwhelmed with homesickness. Life at St. Michael's was harsh. The teachers were stern, and the threat of the cane was ever present. We washed in cold water, and the food was dreadful. Every night, I would lie in bed, facing the direction of my home across the water, trying not to cry. I never slept with my back to my family. The headmaster encouraged parents to send food parcels, as it saved the school money. "Send as much as you like, as often as you like," he would say. "You don't want your son to be the only one with an empty tuck box." Every Sunday, we were required to write a letter home. These letters were censored by the headmaster, so we only ever wrote about the good things. We were not allowed to correct our spelling mistakes, a clever trick to make parents think the letters were unread and therefore truthful. "My dear boy must be happy," they would think. "This letter is full of spelling errors." I wrote to my mother that first Sunday, and I continued to write to her every week, sometimes more, for the next 32 years. After she passed away in 1957, I found over 600 of my letters, all of which she had carefully saved. Chapter 5: A Drive to Remember. After 3 long months, I returned home for the Christmas holidays. It was wonderful to be free from school. While I was away, my family had purchased their very first car. I was ecstatic. In 1925, driving regulations were lax. My older half-sister, who was 21, had 2 30-minute lessons and was deemed qualified to drive. One day, 7 of us piled into the car for an outing. My half-sister, my 18-year-old half-brother, my 12-year-old sister, my 40-year-old mother, my 2 younger sisters aged 8 and 5, and me aged 9. "How fast can it go?" we all clamored. "Can it do 60 miles an hour?" "It can," she replied confidently, "and we'll go even faster." We drove slowly through the village, a spectacle for the onlookers. Once we were on the open road, my half-sister said, "See, I've got this." "Faster," we urged. She accelerated to about 35 miles an hour. As we approached a sharp bend, she suddenly panicked. "Help!" she screamed. The car veered off the road and crashed into a hedge. The sound of shattering glass filled the air. Everyone else was shaken but unharmed. I, however, was not so lucky. My nose was nearly severed from my face. My half-sister, though distraught, managed to drive the damaged car at a snail's pace to the doctor's office. "Wow," the doctor exclaimed upon seeing me. "Look at that nose. It hurts." I cried. "Don't worry," the doctor reassured my mother. "He'll keep his nose." An hour later, at our house, I was laid on a table. A cloth with a strong, sweet-smelling liquid was placed over my face. I struggled, but strong hands held me down. "Good boy," the doctor's voice said. "Close your eyes and go to sleep." I awoke 8 hours later, my nose stitched back in place. My mother gave me a coin. "Well done," she said. "This is for you." Chapter 6: The Tobacco Prank. In 1926, my half-sister became engaged to an English doctor, who joined us for our summer holiday in Norway. It was a change in our family dynamic. She and her fiancé were inseparable, creating a distance from the rest of us younger siblings. I was only 9 and didn't quite understand it. We resented this doctor for taking our sister away, and we also disliked him for the foul-smelling pipe he constantly smoked. One afternoon, the doctor went for a swim, leaving his pipe on the beach towel. I noticed some dry goat droppings nearby, and a mischievous plan formed in my mind. I quickly crumbled some of the droppings and mixed them in with the tobacco in his pipe. When the doctor returned from his swim, he picked up his pipe and lit it. My siblings and I watched with bated breath. "Ah," he sighed contentedly. "Nothing like a good smoke after a swim. This English tobacco is far superior to the Norwegian kind." The sun was warm, the sky was blue. Suddenly, the idyllic scene was shattered. The doctor leaped to his feet with a loud yell, the pipe flying from his mouth. His face was ashen. "Help! My insides are on fire," he sputtered. My half-sister rushed to his side, terrified. "What is it? Where does it hurt?" He lay on the sand, gasping for air. After a few minutes, he began to recover. "What happened?" my half-sister asked. "I don't know," he moaned. I know, my youngest sister piped up excitedly. "Tell us," my half-sister urged. "It was his pipe," she giggled. "What's wrong with my pipe?" the doctor asked, bewildered. "It had goat droppings in it," she squealed with laughter. A wave of understanding, followed by fury, washed over the faces of my half-sister and the doctor. He slowly got to his feet. My siblings and I didn't wait for a second invitation. We scrambled away from him and into the safety of the sea. Chapter 7: A New School, a New Life. In 1929, my mother presented me with a choice for my next school. "Do you want to go to Marlborough or Repton?" They were both prestigious English boarding schools, but I knew nothing about either. "Repton," I answered, simply because the name was easier to pronounce. "Very well," my mother said. "You'll go to Repton." Repton, located in the heart of England, had a very peculiar uniform. My sisters howled with laughter when they saw me in it, but my mother reassured me. "You look very distinguished. People will see that uniform and know you go to a fine school." At the train station, I saw a sea of other boys dressed in the same strange attire. I was 13 years old and about to enter a world with its own bizarre customs and hierarchies. Older boys held all the power, particularly a select group of seniors we called prefects. They could command younger boys to do anything, and we had to obey. We cleaned their rooms, built their fires, and sometimes even cooked their meals. My assigned prefect's room had to be cleaned every Sunday by me and 2 other boys. We would scrub for hours, but he would invariably find some fault and punish us with his cane. A prefect could stand anywhere in the school and shout for a fag, a junior boy, to run an errand, and all the younger boys had to come running. The last one to arrive was given the task. One cold, snowy morning, I heard the call and ran as fast as I could, but I was the last to arrive. "Miller, come here," said the prefect, a boy named Worthington. "Go and warm my toilet seat." At Repton, the toilets were in an unheated outbuilding with no doors on the stalls. In winter, the seats were ice cold. It was my duty to sit on the toilet seat for 15 minutes to warm it up for Worthington before he used it. "Is it warm?" he'd ask. "As warm as it can be, Worthington," I'd reply. "We'll see about that," he'd say. "Very good. Some boys have cold bottoms. I'll remember you have a warm one." He did remember me. I started carrying a book with me at all times, as I spent a good portion of that first winter at Repton reading the works of Charles Dickens on Worthington's toilet. But school wasn't all bad. Periodically, every boy would receive a small gray box from the Cadbury Chocolate Company. Inside were 12 different chocolate bars, one familiar, and 11 new creations. We were tasked with sampling each one and providing feedback on a small scorecard. It was a brilliant marketing strategy. Who better to test new chocolates than a school full of their best customers? Years later, when I was searching for an idea for a children's book, I remembered those little gray boxes, and the inspiration for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was born. Sports were a massive part of life at English boarding schools. Thankfully, I was athletic, which made my time there much more bearable. My best sport was a fast-paced handball game called fives. I was good enough to travel to other schools to compete. I also played soccer and squash. Beyond sports, I developed a passion for photography. In the 1920s, cameras were complex machines. I set up a makeshift darkroom near the music rooms and spent hours developing my pictures. When it came time for graduation, my mother asked, "Do you want to go to Oxford or Cambridge?" They were the expected next step for a boy from a school like Repton. But I had had enough of academia. I wanted to see the world. I chose to work for the Shell Oil Company, a decision that would take me to far-flung corners of the globe. But that, of course, is another story for another time.